Okay.
But that's just because I think the hoodie looks so damn cool. Um, and I think the underwear at the moment is a bit blue. It's a little bit too vibrant. I think we might change the underwear to white. So I think what you'll start with at the moment is you'll start with a t-shirt,
Right.
gym shoes.
Okay.
So it'll be pretty basic what you start with.
And are those going to be high visibility colors, or are they just more of the subdued blues that I've seen from some of the screenshots?
I think they'll be more just what you would wear normally.
Right.
So that's what we're going to go with. Is, like right now I'm wearing a t-shirt and jeans, so it'd effectively be exactly that.
Another question about clothing: Are you considering putting the ass hat glitch back in at all?
No, look, it wasn't as cool as people think. The screenshots. It was a funny bug though. I wrote that bug report up. I quite enjoyed writing that.
Oh, that was so cute. Yeah. We should have, you really should have given us some screenshots of that.
I've taken screenshots. It's just,
oh, good.
You got to be so careful what screenshots you put up because they end up everywhere, and people will nearly always, media outlets will focus on a couple of key things. So you have to be. I've learned to be very careful about how you phrase things to try and push the focus in one direction.
Right.
Of what they pick out.
I'm also thinking about on Reddit, one thing that was really cool that sort of organically, like, sort of appeared on its own was the Reddit Rescue Force. And it was just such an interesting phenomenon that out of nowhere, other players would say, okay, look, we're willing to come rescue you in-game. And you can tell us whether or not you're willing to give us something in return for that, or whether you simply have nothing and we have to take the risk of saving you ourselves for nothing, just for the sake of being a hero. Is there going to be anything like that put into the game, like, for example, bounties that you could post on, I don't know, street corners, things like that?
I really don't want to push us to try and direct this organic stuff.
Okay.
Because I think that the strength of DayZ is that somehow, for some reason, it is creating this organic, people call it emergent gameplay, but I think it's even a little bit more than that. There's some kind of organic gameplay, organic sort of social development that happens. So I think that we want to focus more on mechanics. I mean, in terms of to support development of stuff, support options. Like, take, for example, writing. So being able to write messages in the game. Me and Matt, as you know, play a lot of Space Station 13. And Space Station 13, you can write on pages. Then you can take those pages to a machine and you can create a book. That book is actually saved in a database. So we were talking about at lunch how cool it would be to do that. And I have no doubt that someone will end up writing amazing books, say, in DayZ. And then I would love it if you could end up with kind of this Book of Eli situation where there's some very famous book in game. And another thing was tagging clothing. So wouldn't it be awesome? Like, people were like, oh, imagine if they came across, Rocket Two Guns' backpack and stuff like that, that was actually on this other character.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, kind of like in Zombieland when they go to Bill Murray's house.
Yeah.
And it's Bill Murray's house.
But we don't want to build this stuff. We want to build it to happen. And another example I'll use, I have used this example before, is I heard someone describing a story when they came across one of those red, like 2 or 3 story apartment building things you can go inside.
Yeah.
And they saw all these zombies outside, and they heard the buzzing sound of a player who must have been killed. And they thought, oh, well, I'll check his body. So they went into the building, and they noticed there was like dead zombies all the way up the stairs. He went up on the ladder, he was up on the roof, and he saw the zombies went all the way to the edge, the dead zombies, looked over the edge, and he saw the body dead, the human body dead, and zombies all around it. So they realised that this player must have been doing their last stand, got to the edge of the building and fallen off.
Oh, epic.
And they were talking about the feeling that they felt, like almost that they were seeing something that they shouldn't. That, to me, is a million times more compelling than us creating a bus with blood on it and dead zombies and stuff like that. Because you just run past it, you don't notice it. But if you see it and you realise that this is something that actually happened, that player will never know you're there, that there was no design for you to be there. You're seeing something almost that didn't expect to see. That is the crux of it, and that is why we don't want to take the easy route of saying, okay, we're going to add in bounties or we're going to add in this. You just want to set it up in such a way that the players develop this kind of stuff, and they develop a lot of stuff that we never think of, and that's where a lot of this, for me, the legends like Dr. Wasteland, or the legends of, the Black Widow, this girl who lures guys into the church in Cherno, saying, help me, and then kills them. And these things have become bigger than the game itself, or bigger than our design. So I think we just need to keep that going.
I remember when the option to respawn with just, pressing escape was taken out of the game. If you didn't like the spawn point, and that was removed, and then all of a sudden there was this phenomenon of bodies being found at the bases of lighthouses and underneath bridges floating in the water. It was so disturbing. And
it is, and I think, to me, that's the kind of horror that I'm most interested in.
Yeah.
I think there's something very disturbing about, in a sense, real life. And if you actually look at DayZ, there's many aspects of it that aren't scary at all. The animations are terrible. We're lucky that a community member really helped out with creating the faces for the current, the zombies in the mod and things like that. But it's that horror that you realise that a lot of these things actually happened to someone.
Yeah.
And then the perverse nature of you coming across it when it was never intended for you. It wasn't designed, it wasn't planned. And it's almost like a feeling of something that you shouldn't really see.
Yeah.
And I think that is where its strength is. So we're very particular about that, and I think that's a real key direction for it.
About spawn points. Is it going to be mainly along the coastline again, or will we see random spawns throughout the map?
You know what? I just realized I haven't even looked at that. So I guess, the thing is, with development, we need to test a lot of stuff out. So as we're testing the multiplayer, it's exactly the same. For those total DayZ hipsters here who were at the very start of development, they'll remember that you spawned by the petrol station to the west of Cherno.
Right.
Everyone spawned there at the start. This is back when there was only one server. And so we're kind of at that point again. Now, there's a little building that I've been using on the western side of Cherno. It's the first building I've configured to have, in fact, people might have seen a screenshot of it. It had like hatchets on the wall and beams on the windowsill and stuff like that. So I've configured it for for all sorts of weird little spawns. So that's at the moment where you spawn.
Okay.
We'll look at it. I need to do a bit more thinking of it. We probably need to test some stuff, talk with some people like Dyslexy and that, just get some ideas and try some stuff, I think. But I don't know. I think that definitely one of the advantages of spawning on the coast was it made inland have this reputation. And I think now more than ever, with the new areas, with the balancing of where some different stuff is, I think that we want to maintain that. So perhaps spawning on the coast remains a good idea.
Okay. A little bit more about tracking, I guess, death and that sort of strange phenomenon of finding things left behind by a previous player. Is there a chance of finding bullet casings on the floor after a firefight, or like blood trickles? I know that was in your poll. It would make, obviously, tracking players a little bit more fun and last stands a bit more emotional if it took you so long to follow the trail to where someone might be.
Yeah, well,
is there anything like that?
3's got it.
Right.
It hasn't been. I'm not spoiling there. Well, I'm pretty sure it has. I haven't actually played Arma 3 in a while, but I'm pretty sure at Gamescom the build had that in it. But there is an issue for us in terms of memory and then dealing with all these things. It's the same with, for a while in the mod, I had it so once you ate a can of beans, you threw down this empty can of beans, and it was an actual object. You could run around, you could kick. Well, if you run past it, it would move. It had physics.
Right.
But that has serious issues with, it affects your frame rate and memory involved with it, and you have to balance that kind of stuff. So I think it's probably a bit much in that aspect. We'd have to really balance it in terms of bullet casings. So I think probably that's a no.
Okay. With player spawns, will we see different items that they spawn with, like perhaps things that they took from their house in the panic trying to escape the plague, or will it be very stark? Will they still spawn with what we see them now, like just the bandage and the flashlight? And how do you think that will play out?
Well, look, I've thought about a bunch of options. We don't actually have as many artists as I'd like at the moment, so the pace of which is pumping out clothing is a lot slower than I want. So expect to see more on that. We'll probably do a post at some point and a link and people who want to join the artist. But, because what I wanted to do, not what I wanted to do, what I thought about trying was having it so that you could choose a bit more about your character's background. That would have positive negatives, because I was a fan of that level of customization and Fallout.
Yes.
But I think that it felt a little bit like we want to have things much more organically done in DayZ than in terms of skills and stuff like that. We think that there's a chance to try new stuff rather than just doing the same old skill trees and stuff like that again and again. So it's yeah, it's a balancing act. So I'd originally wanted to look at doing that, like maybe you could have this as your background and therefore it would give you these kind of items, but it would mean you get less of this. So I think we'll look at doing something like that, but don't expect to start with really very much at all.
Well, that sounds
what do
like...
I have in my pockets at the moment? Like I have a cell phone, a wallet, some keys that,
like Les Stroud in Survivor Man. He only
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I think you would really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's what Matt's been playing.
No, it's a TV show, a Canadian TV show of a man who goes out into the wilderness for 7 days and survives with nothing but a multi-tool and sometimes like some bike parts from a bicycle. It's mental. I'll send you the link to it. But I want to get back to the idea of spawning. With like what you were just saying, and that I can imagine how difficult it would be to give your character different traits at the very beginning. I don't know how much progress you've made in that, but perhaps it would be more doable to eventually, I guess in a way, level your character. Maybe the more hunting you do, maybe you get a little bit better at tracking the animals, or maybe the more cars you find parts for, then perhaps the better your mechanic skill. Something like that, where it's progressive with how often you work on one particular aspect of the game.
Yeah, we feel pretty strongly, definitely I do, that the leveling in DayZ is your gear. Perhaps the different thing about DayZ is that and I think Zero Punctuation put it very well when they said great equalizer in DayZ is that, you can just suddenly turn around and grab what that person is who was just about to shoot you, if you're kind of lucky or skilled or whatever. It's not that you're going, it's the amount of time you invest in it, your character gets better. So I think that any type of particular leveling, we're not going to get that. We're not going to have that. We're always going to have this focus on, I don't really even know what to call it, but I just think it's a really interesting direction for the game to go.
I think it's cool too.
And that your gear is your equipment. And I really want to see us develop more the character side of it. That's really, for me, phase one is character, and that is what the next few months, from just testing it, even after we've released it, the first few months will be focusing on reinforcing the sense of character, that this is my character. And beyond that, that's when we'll look at probably the first type of in-game content. Towards the middle of the year, I'm thinking more about these customizable vehicles. So
Right.
the example I was using before, maybe your vehicle needs a new bonnet, so you steal a bonnet off another car. Now maybe that other car was red and your car's blue, so you end up with a red bonnet.
Oh, that's so clever. I love it. What about siphoning gas from the tanks of other cars instead of having to go to the fuel tank at a gas station? Is there going to be anything like that implemented?
Yeah, well, we're looking at a lot of those things, although I guess the caveat I must add is that at the moment, we're just going to make exactly what the vehicle system does at the moment just work better for the standalone. So it's
Right.
going to do exactly what it is, but just with better performance.
Right.
It's only later on, I would say, roughly guessing, towards the middle of the year, we'll start looking at this